So I've had this idea stashed for quite a bit now. A while back I made a video about realigning the NFL divisions and you guys seemed to like it. So with all the recent conference news like the Pac-12 basically going extinct and Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC, the conferences are all willy-nilly now. We have a California team and a primarily Midwestern conference, and we have a Western team in Colorado, primarily in a Southern conference in the Big 12. I know they're making their return, but still. So I decided to clean all this mess up. Let's take a look at these conferences. See them? Poof. Gone. Any existence and any history of them at all are gone. And we are left with a blank canvas. And on this canvas, you will see my NCAA Division I Conference Realignment. If you haven't watched my NFL Realignment, I would suggest watching that. I will leave a link to that. But also note that I organized the divisions geographically, and it will be the same case here. So without further ado, let's jump in. So there are officially 133 Division I schools, if I'm not mistaken. That could have changed. And there were some recent Division I call-ups that were included in this realignment, but I also included 2 call-ups of my own that you will see eventually. For the first conference, we have the Patriot League. Army, West Point, Navy, Air Force, and Virginia Military Institute round out the Patriot League. VMI is not an FBS school, and they really aren't even good for the conference that they're in either, but moving them up from the FCS, we will have all the military academies together, and I will have an even amount of teams to put into this division because I had no other excuse. Also, this will be the only conference that is not organized geographically. So to start with the geographically based conferences, we have the Pacific Coast Conference. Taking the place of the Pac, this 12-team conference is split into 2 divisions. Those divisions are Washington, Oregon State, USC, San Diego State, Fresno State, and Stanford, Washington State, Oregon, UCLA, San Jose State, Hawaii, and Cal. This conference is pretty balanced, I think. We have some Pac-12 teams and some Mountain West teams combining into one conference. Obviously, this is not all of the teams from each conference because those other teams are in the Mountain West Conference. One of the few returning conferences in the FBS is built up by 2 7-team divisions. In the first, we have BYU, Boise State, Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico State, UNLV, and FBS call-up North Dakota State. In the other, we have Utah, Wyoming, Arizona State, Colorado State, New Mexico, Nevada, and Utah State. Now this conference is a bit top-heavy, but we have more Pac-12 and Mountain West teams combining into a single conference, as well as the addition of independent/Big 12 BYU. And the FBS call-up North Dakota State, who has been dominating the FCS for basically the last 10 years. And while they are the most isolated team of the bunch, they made the most sense for me to throw into this conference due to the competition and location. It may have made sense to throw them in the Central American Conference, which has, in one division, Ohio State, Purdue, Notre Dame, Indiana, Michigan, Iowa State, Kansas, and Missouri. And in the other, Wisconsin, Iowa, Kansas State, Michigan State, Minnesota, Illinois, Northwestern, and Nebraska. A conference with some Big 12, Big 10, and SEC teams joining together, as well as independent Notre Dame finally finding a conference to call home. It wouldn't make as much sense to throw North Dakota State, who is just getting into the FBS, straight into the fire against teams like Ohio State. Next, we're going to move over to some MACtion. We have in one division, Ohio, Toledo, Akron, Ball State, Central Michigan, and Northern Illinois. And in the other, we have Cincinnati, Kent State, Bowling Green, Miami of Ohio, Western Michigan, and Eastern Michigan. Now this conference is definitely top heavy with the singular team being Cincinnati. This is really hard to keep competitive while taking into account geographical consistency, but this is basically Cincy dominating any form of action. Next we have the Big South Conference, and in one division we have Georgia, Miami, Florida State, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Mississippi State, and Wake Forest. And in the other we have Alabama, Florida, Auburn, South Carolina, NC State, Ole Miss, and Clemson. The Big South is kind of self-explanatory. Most of the schools in this conference are some of the biggest and most competitive schools in the southern United States. This is basically the SEC of my realignment. Next, we have the South Atlantic Conference. There's no divisions in this one, it's just a 15-team conference. Starting with FAU, FIU, Charlotte, Coastal Carolina, Appalachian State, Duke, Kennesaw State, James Madison, Marshall, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, Old Dominion, East Carolina, South Florida, and UCF. This conference is compiled of teams from 5 different original conferences, which are CUSA, Sunbelt, ACC, American Athletic, and the Big 12. And on top of that, we have Kennesaw State making their debut in Division I football. Next, we have the Woodlands Conference. This conference is made up of Arkansas State, Southern Mississippi, Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, Memphis, South Alabama, Troy, UAB, Tulane, Louisiana Tech, and Jacksonville State. This conference seems pretty balanced, although Tulane did have that randomly great season last year where they finished as a ranked team and beat USC in a bowl game, but I'm still going to throw them in here. And on top of having teams from the Sun Belt, American Athletic, and Conference USA, we have FBS newcomer from the Atlantic Sun Conference, Jacksonville State, making their debut. Moving on to the North Atlantic Conference, we have, in one division, Penn State, Syracuse, Boston College, Temple, and UMass. And in the other, we have Pitt, Maryland, Rutgers, Buffalo, and UConn. Now, I know these divisions are pretty top-heavy, and Penn State seems like they are going to bully everybody, but Pitt did win the ACC not too long ago. But yeah, Buffalo and UMass and UConn are going to get destroyed, but hey, it's geographically correct. We may have Big Ten and ACC teams going against the MAC, American Athletic, and independent teams, but it works. Kind of. Moving on to the Appalachian Valley Conference, we have Virginia, Virginia Tech, Liberty, Louisville, Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Vanderbilt. With teams coming from the SEC, ACC, Big 12, and the Conference USA, this conference for the most part has all former Power 5 conference schools. It should be relatively competitive, but it kind of looks like Tennessee would be the powerhouse here. Moving on, we have the Big Bayou Conference. In this conference, we have SMU, UTSA, UTEP, North Texas, Texas State, Rice, Tulsa, Louisiana Monroe, Louisiana, and Sam Houston State. This conference takes teams from the Sun Belt, American Athletic, and Conference USA, and there is an FBS newcomer formerly of the WAC and the CUSA if you want, Sam Houston State also making their debut. And the last conference, we have the Red River Conference. In this conference, we have Texas, Texas Tech, TCU, Texas A&M, Baylor, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, LSU, Arkansas, and Houston. From a rivalry game name to a conference name, the Red River Conference contains teams that were formerly of the SEC and Big 12 because Houston just moved to the Big 12. So there is my Division I conference realignment. I hope you guys enjoyed this concept. Let me know if you would realign it differently. I spent a lot of time trying to make decent enough names for these conferences. I did away with all the numbers. For the most part, each name has a unique meaning, as you saw from the little fun facts that I included in there. I'm not really a fan of what's going on with college football today and all this conference realignment stuff and how the Pac-12 is disintegrating basically because I am an Oregon fan, so it's sad to see. But things like this lead to ideas such as these. Hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you in the next video.